Let's talk about American security umbrella for Europe. It has been definitely changed. How could you indicate it now, and what is it and how it works?
Well, it took the Second World War for Americans to understand that the security of Europe directly impacted the security of the United States of America. Before the Second World War, Americans hadn't really internalized that. But at the end of the Second World War, things like the Marshall Plan, the formation of NATO, and a whole range of other linkages were established to ensure that Europe could never go to war with itself again and therefore not impact on American security. That understanding has broken down in the last year. The current Trump administration does not appear to support that kind of approach. Indeed, it would rather align itself with authoritarians than democracies.
Mhm. Several European states are openly supporting the idea of negotiating their own nuclear deterrent to complement the American one amid a decline in trust in the United States under Donald Trump. How could change nuclear power balance and global security architecture if this comes true?
Well, I think if more European countries decided to have their own nuclear weapons, it would be very interesting to see whether they have it as part of a collective security agreement or whether it would be to guarantee their own security. The whole command and control for the use of nuclear weapons would need to be political, not military. And who would have the say over those weapons? The country that developed them, or would there be European command and control? I think that that would have to be resolved. But also, I think you might see a wider breakout to go beyond the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. So countries, whether it's Germany or Poland, Korea or Japan, might also decide that they need nuclear weapons.
We see that European security is caught in the, I would say, crossfire. I mean, literal fire from Russia and political fire from Washington. How European security could evolve efficiently under such circumstances, in your opinion?
Well, certainly European countries can afford to spend more on their own defence. The 2% barrier has been broken by many of them. 3 to 4% is probably a more realistic target, but that will require either more borrowing, higher taxes, or decreased spending on the huge number of social services that European citizens are used to receiving. They could do that. That doesn't mean, however, they have to entirely break their relationship with the United States. The United States is still the most powerful nation in the world. It is the most powerful democracy. It's in all our interest to retain good relations with the United States, even if relations at the moment under the Trump administration are not what we would like them to be.
Some experts say that Russia is capable of fighting endlessly. How do you assess Russian military, economic, and political capabilities to hold this war efficiently in a long-term perspective? And how long will Putin have enough resources?
Well, I think the only circumstances where that might be true is if Russia was defending its own territory. That is not what it is doing here. Russia is engaged in a legal war of territorial expansion and aggression. Under these circumstances, I do not believe Russia can fight endlessly, even though it may have mobilized the resources to fight for longer than anyone anticipated. Russia is not capable of an endless war in a expeditionary sense, only in defending its own homeland.
When it comes to Russian human resources, in your opinion, when Putin is ready to global mobilization, I mean to general mobilization?
Well, he's not shown any inclination to do that because he knows there's a cost to his regime for doing that. Certainly, he has not demonstrated the inclination to mobilize people from key Russian cities, including Moscow. He would rather recruit people from Africa, South Asia, and lie to them about where they might be serving in the Russian armed forces. I think, once again, it would have to be a national emergency where Russia was defending its own territory, where it could get away with general mobilization of the population. So I think this is a pressure point. This is where Ukraine can hurt Russia. And if Ukraine can do, as the Minister of Defense Fedorov has said, increase casualties to 50,000 a month, this will force Putin for the first time, I think, to really confront, is Ukraine worth the casualties? I hope it does, because like all Ukrainians, we would like to see peace under the kind of circumstances that are favourable to Ukraine this year, not favourable to Russia.
Peace talks in Geneva. How do you assess prospects of trilateral negotiations in general, and do you believe in successful outcome?
I think we are very unlikely to see any major outcomes of the next round of peace talks in Geneva. The Russians have put in charge of it a chief negotiator who's been proven to be inept and unable to really negotiate effectively with Ukrainians in the past. I think that's the Russians signaling that they're just playing for time. The fact of the matter is Putin desperately needs something that he can sell as a victory to the Russian people. He does not have that at the moment. And therefore, I believe he will continue dragging out negotiations and leading the Trump administration down a garden path until he thinks he can get something that looks like a victory. That's unlikely, but I think he will continue delaying.
How could be solved territorial issue? I would say the most difficult in these negotiations.
Well, the simplest way to do it is the Russians go home, but I don't think the Russians appear willing to do that. This is a very difficult political and societal challenge for Ukraine, given the laws around territorial integrity and the fact that Russia has seized Ukrainian territory illegally over the period of time, not since 2022, but 2014. So I think this is going to have to be something that potentially could be parked. There could be a ceasefire along current lines, and then the situation with territory and what happens with territory might be subject to further negotiations. But I think this is such a consequential, such a difficult issue, it's hard to see being resolved in the short term.
Rubio flew to Orban and Fico. They are known for maintaining ties with Moscow, opposing military aid to Ukraine, and previously even blocking EU sanctions against Russia. What is the main interest of cooperation between the US, Slovakia, and Hungary?
Well, I think it's more him signalling that his president feels some kind of fealty, or at least feels that they have similar political interests in how they govern their countries. And in fact, I think the US Secretary of State talking with those people straight after he gave what was a reasonably conciliatory speech at the Munich Security Conference indicates that the speech really wasn't conciliatory. It was exactly what J.D. Vance said last year, just sugar-coated.
I got you. Zelensky said that Trump offered security guarantees for 15 years, but Kyiv requires 30 or 50 years. How do you understand American logic in terms of security guarantees and its time frames?
Well, I'm not sure there is a logic to the American offer of 15 years, and I think this is something that could be part of the negotiation, whether it's 15 or 30 or 100 years as the UK agreement is. I think the most important thing is getting some kind of security guarantee from the United States, and when that's in place, it can be negotiated to have that lengthened over time. So even a 10-year guarantee, I think, would be good as a start point, and then immediately start negotiating for lengthening it at the back end.